What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Cutlass Board Games channel, and once again we are talking about some Blood on the Clocktower. This time in particular, we're talking about a homebrew script I've cooked up today, but it's going to be part of a larger discussion on Outsiders. We have talked about them before on the channel, but what tends to happen with a lot of Outsiders in particular is that they advocate for their own execution on the first day, and then they're kind of not really playing the game, which is not great. I understand why they exist for balancing reason, and some Outsiders are more fun than others, but I want to talk about some ideas that will help encourage Outsiders to be a little bit more part of the game, a little bit more involved. And so I've created this script. It's called Catch and Release. And I picked 4 Outsiders in particular, and I've added one of my custom ones that I use for a lot of stuff because I like it a lot. But the 4 Outsiders in particular are the highest self-execution risk characters, in my opinion. The Recluse, which is probably number 1. The Barber, which is probably number 2. The Mutant, and then the Damsel. And the Damsel is in the 4th slot because it's sometimes meta that if they are like volunteering really hard to get executed on the first day, a minion will just throw out a guess and potentially win the game, so that they may be a bit cagier and will try and get executed on the second day or something instead. And then we have the Imitator, which is a homebrew character I've created, which is like the Bixie with downside. You start knowing one in-play character, you are mad that you are that character, or that character dies even if you are dead. So if the Imitator saw the Balloonist on the first night, the Imitator must always claim to be the Balloonist, or the Balloonist will die. If the Balloonist is already dead, then the Imitator can say, yeah, I was the Imitator the whole time. It's like aggressively detrimental pixie, basically. But let's talk about some of the homebrew characters. Let's start with the townsfolk. A lot of the townsfolk picked just kind of like general info stuff that I thought would fit nicely with the characters that I have on the script. So I'll kind of go through that at the end. But I want to talk about the new homebrew ones first. First one is the Trumpeteer. The Trumpeteer is really interesting because the Trumpeteer says, evil cannot win while an outsider lives. Now, this doesn't prevent the end game state, because even if the final 3 is outsider, Trumpeteer, demon, the demon must kill one of these 2 to win the game. If they kill the Trumpeteer ability is no longer in effect, evil wins. If they kill the outsider, an outsider no longer lives, the Trumpeteer ability goes away, evil wins. But it prevents victories from evil abilities before the end of the game. Which, for example, I have the evil twin. So if the good twin is executed while the Trumpeteer is in play and an outsider lives, the evil team does not win. And we have Signature, which is a new homebrew minion, which also has a win condition staple to it, which we'll talk about in a second. Because I wanted some extra ones. I was just going to put in Fearmonger, but I thought it would be more fun to have a homebrew one in that slot instead. I do like to design homebrew scripts where there's only a couple of new characters, so there's less mental load for players trying to pick up what's going on, because there'll be a lot of stuff they're already familiar with. And this only has 6. But let's talk about the Channeler. So the Channeler says, once per game at night asterisk, choose a player and character. If evil and not a demon or a minion, they become good and that character you chose. So if they've been turned evil by a Mezephiles, by a bounty hunter, by the Tormentor, which we'll get into later, then the Channeler can, smoosh and scare away the evil spirits, and then they will become that good character you chose. I should specify that it should be a good character. Maybe I'll change it to townsfolk instead of character for clarification there. But its design intention is it works like the Huntsman for the Recluse. The Recluse registers as evil to the Channeler. The Recluse is not a demon or a minion. It can be, but you would not. and then the Recluse will become a character of the Channeler's choice. But it can also undo a Mezephiles. It's very, very hard to find an evil townsfolk that a Mezephiles has turned. So if the Channeler does hit them, that's Mundo upside. And then same for the Tormentor's Tormentee, which we'll talk about in a second. We already covered the Imitator, and I think that this Outsider spread works kind of nicely with the setup that we've got. For minions, we've got Mez to create an extra evil player. We've got the Evil Twin, because I did a video recently about the Evil Twin. I kind of want to see more Evil Twin gameplay. And the Pit Hag, because the Pit Hag can add additional outsiders into the game. And then we have the Fangu, which can add an outsider, and outsider staying alive becomes relevant because the they have the opportunity to become evil through the Fangu. The Kazali, at the start of the game, could be picking an outsider to become a minion, but also it gives us the ability to fudge how many outsiders are in the game. And then the Tormentor. So the Tormentor is each night asterisk choose a player, they die. On your first night, your nearest clockwise outsider becomes evil and gains a minion ability, +0 or +1 outsider. So if the Channeler selects the Tormentee, they will stop having the minion ability, they will stop being an outsider, and they will instead be the character the Channeler chose. But for the Tormentor, there's some pretty cool options for what minions they could become, but the Tormentee does not learn who the Tormentor is, which is supposed to be a facet of game balance. This is the thing that I want to test. I'm interested to see how this will go. And then some of the minion options are pretty good. If it's an Evil Twin, it will be very obviously loud. And then the Tormentor has a 50-50 shot of guessing who their new minion is, which is kind of helpful. If it's something like the Signature, it doesn't matter if they know, except for if they're a dead player registering to the Signature. Now, let's talk about the Signature before we go back to Eviction. Signature is if 4 dead good players have no dead good neighbors, you win the game. Now, basically, any evil players dead, any dead players registering as evil, Signature doesn't care. Signature does not see that at all. It just says, is there 4 dead good players? Do they have no dead good neighbors? Now, this has the opportunity to trigger multiple times, not just while there is 4 dead players. If there is 4 dead players with no dead good neighbors, you win the game. So if there's 11 dead players in a 500 player game, purely hypothetical, doesn't matter what the actual maths is, and they don't have dead good neighbors, Signature wins the game. In a 15 player game, you could have 6 dead players, 4 of which are townsfolk with no neighbors. Signature wins, for example. Which is really, really good in a much, much bigger game. And you can kind of have a turn 2 victory in a 7 player game if you have a nice pattern. Which is kind of funny. And it's less good in a 7. But could be very fast in a 7. So I think that's interesting. And the Demon has opportunity to get 2 hits, basically, where they're going to hit something that's not an executee. So on the second day, good players have to be we must execute next to someone that is dead already and hope that that player is a good player. Otherwise, we might lose the game. But if they execute an evil player anytime, Signature won't trigger until later because there isn't 4 dead good players, right? So there's a really interesting trying to figure out who's what. And I think the Oracle might work really well if Signature does become a big menace. But I have a hunch that players will be smart enough to try and avoid losing to Signature. But Signature doesn't have to be in play. It's going to cause panic anyway, which I think is really interesting. And I'm excited to see how Signature works. Now, let's talk about the big bad, the Vortox replacement. We are talking about Eviction. Each night, asterisk choose a player, they die. Players killed this way register as an outsider and gain an ability detrimental to the good team. So they might just gain an ability that is a common and familiar outsider ability that does stuff while you were dead. They could just register as evil and as a minion or demon, even if dead. They could any number of other things, but it's directed by the storyteller. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that they are notified of. Like if they are mad about something, they must be notified. But it could be the player next to you is now poisoned, like as if a vigor mortis killed a player. It could be anything that the storyteller believes is detrimental to the good team. And I'm cooking some crazy ideas about how this would run, because it gives you an opportunity to be like insanely detrimental. Also insanely obvious that it's eviction. Like if you gave an extra kill, like a person next to the player that dies from something, or something that happens that's not possible within the state of the game, like a player dies during the day when nominating because there's no witch or something like that. Like if the eviction detrimental ability is the player's neighboring this player for 1 day are witch cursed, or something like that, and then they nominate and they do die, everyone goes, there's no way this could have happened unless it's eviction. And then like they're trying to figure out which demon it is in that way. And there's some like really subtle choices you could make. You could be just poisoning or information or registering or anything like that. Or if it's really necessary to start showing stuff, or the evil team's doing really badly, you can start doing much more detrimental abilities. And that's kind of the script idea. We also have the lycanthrope, because the one good player registers as evil, the faux paw, can be picked by the channeler, which is really funny. If you pick a faux paw on a character that's like the clockmaker, they could be channeled and get a new, different, better ability later, which would be cool. And then it's kind of all just a lot of information, a lot of outsider kind of focus stuff, like the balloonist, like the librarian. And then, yeah, that's kind of the idea. So eviction creates pseudo outsiders. It creates amnesiac outsiders, basically. Players they killed turn into the amnesiac somewhat. The Tormentor creates a outsider minion ally. The Kazali can potentially turn outsiders into just evil players on setup. The Fangu can turn an outsider into a Fangu. And then we have some good players like the Huntsman, like the Channeler, like the Trumpeteer, that specifically require outsider allies to help them win the game. So the goal is to try and turn our list of outsiders into helpful allies instead of detriments to the good team, to give them more reason to feel like they can participate in the game, but they might not necessarily be able to out themselves as to who they are. That's the goal. And I'm going to be trying to test this script soon with a regular group. I'm excited about it. And, hopefully we'll be able to show off some gameplay soon. But if you're having a look at this, if you see anything that I've missed, if you see any goofy clashes or jinxes or problems with some of these characters, let me know, because sometimes I miss stuff. I'm dreaming about things that might be exciting, things that might be fun to play. Sometimes it's easy to miss some awkward interactions. And I will have a playlist up on the screen of some of the other cool custom Clocktower content that I have created that might be worth checking out. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video when we do get to play this script.